สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon. Welcome to the third session of the Siam Society Literary Lounge of this year. It is organized as a part of the celebration for 120th anniversary of the Siam Society. My name is Peerapat Ouysook San. I'm the chair of the 120th anniversary committee. So welcome to every one of you who have taken the trouble to be here this afternoon. I mentioned just now that this is the third session, but it is the first one to be in English. So I'm very pleased that a session in English of the Literary Lounge can happen eventually, because we have promised with many of our members who may want to join in, but they are more comfortable to listen in English more than in Thai. But the program of the Literary Lounge has always been in Thai more than in English. So I'm pleased to welcome a different set of audience this afternoon. In fact, this kind of talk is not something new to the Siam Society, but a talk in the library is something that is quite new, because usually we have lectures in the lecture room on 4th floor in a different setting. But the idea of having a small talk in this kind of more relaxed environment is to partially is to bring you to the library, because the idea of organizing this kind of event is different from the lecture. Last year, when I was the honorary librarian of the Siam Society, I came up with the idea of having a more casual talk where attendants can feel more how the library looks like, and to enjoy the environment, more of a conducive setting to get to know the library as well. Now we are at the midway of the Literary Lounge, because we plan for 6 this year, which will run until March next year, when we will conclude the celebration for the anniversary. So we hold this kind of events every other month. This is the third one. In conjunction with the upcoming event in November, I hope many of you who are here are well aware of the theatrical performance, the 1907. The poster is back there, Rama V's European Operatic journey, which we try to do a lot of study to identify operas that King Rama V watched when he visited Europe for the second time in 1907. The fact that we have done quite a number of studies about which opera the king watched, I and the speakers for this session came up with the idea of showcasing the research of how we arrived at the materials which you're gonna see in this talk as well. So I agree that we should we should not only focus on the show itself, but the study on how we identify the operas. And I think that the speakers know more than me in the sense that how much research they did. So I'm pleased to introduce the speakers for this session. Dr. Peerapat Ouysook, who has been, not just is, but has been with the society for quite some time. He is the cultural officer of the society. Previously, he studied archaeology in Cambridge University, where he earned his PhD. And the second speaker, who is also the stage director for the 1907 show, is Kun Tarin Prinyaknit, who graduated from Chulalongkorn University, majoring in dramatic arts, and he also had his master studies in Italy, in I think opera direct. So we are fortunate to have those who are very keen on the subject, and upon hearing the title, which Earth or Dr. Peerapat told me through line for the first time, like in search for Cio Cio San, King Rama V opera visit of 1907. So Cio Cio San itself gave me an impression of actually a song by the late national artist of Thailand, Payong Mukda, who took the melody from Japan but composed a lyrics for the song named Cio Cio San, sung by another national artist, Rungradi Phang Pongsai. And Dr. Peerapat wanted me to join in, but I said, well, I couldn't join in a sense that what I might only do would be to sing that song. So it is like, okay, maybe it is not a good place to do that. In that way, I hope we will have an opportunity to insert something about the contemporary iteration of Cio Cio San. But anyway, we should not wait until long before I welcome the speakers to the sofa, to the front, please. Whatever you prepare, just fantastic. On behalf of the Siam Society Council, I would like to thank you for your hard work and your dedication to the project. I mean, the performance which will be in November. When in November? 26th of November. That's the first day, right? And we will do like 5 performances. And now tickets are on sale if you want to watch. And for the research as well, because you've done quite a lot of research, which is why you are here to share with us. I don't want to waste their effort in the research, and that's why I agree to have this session to talk, for us to listen to how they discover the details about King Chulalongkorn's visit to different operas. Okay, are you ready? So, without further ado, I give you the speakers, and please join me in giving them the big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction อาจารย์จิครับ
Thanks so much.
Good afternoon and สวัสดีนะครับผม Welcome to the Siam Society Literary Lounge. Partly today it's partly literary lounge and music lounge, right? Because we're playing some music as much as we're going to read some texts. No, we're very honored and excited to be here. Just for the sheer amount of information, the cluster of information that we have to share, and the fact that everyone has turned up with so much interest in the subject. We named this event in search for Cio Cio San, simply because she's the most famous figure to come out of the Klaiban, far from home, or the memoir of His Majesty King Chulalongkorn. That became a book. We know a lot of her. I mean, we know a lot of this character. Today, she is a character that remains in, as Atanti has just introduced, in pop culture, in Thai culture. Mm-hmm. But besides Cio Cio San, we'll see that there are many other characters in at least 7 operas that King Chulalongkorn saw in in Europe, and he mentioned them in Klaiban. And our job, before turning this into a theatrical adaptation, was to go and find out what exactly were these operas. There are some challenges along the way, as you see. There are difficult parts. I think the difficult operas to be identified, and then there are simpler operas that could sort of you'll know as we show you the text. If you're music lovers, this is gonna be like a journey of detective and everything. But before we start, let's just do a bit of ice breaking. I'mนะครับ Peerapat. I'm a trained archaeologist and epigraphist, but my hobby and my passion is also opera. I like opera simply because as I watch opera, I think of myself being an archaeologist, excavating, historical or old culture that are still surviving in today's world. And I think that's the job of part of the jobs of the archaeologist is to go about and say, okay, this is an old thing, but it has relevance in today's everyday life, and that's why I find working in operas or becoming friends and exchanging ideas with people who are involved in operas is a very it helps me to work as an archaeologist นะครับ Just before we proceed, sorry, Atanti introduced this as an English literary lounge, an English event, but as you'll find out, we're working on texts of a few languages. And so if you have questions in Thai or in English, if anything needs to be clarified, if we need to speak slower, just let us know. Or if you need to ask questions along the way, or we'll do readings in Italian, we'll do readings in Thai, in French.
We'll do a quiz.
We'll do a quiz.
Yeah, a pop quiz.
Pop quizzes in 19th century French.
Exactly.
Anyway, and let me just introduce Tim again. So Tim and I became friends back in school, in university, and I think you did so. As introduced by Atanti, you did master's studies in Italy.
In Italy, yes, in opera directing in Verona. Mm-hmm. But before that, I had my bachelor degree in dramatic arts, as Ajanji said. Mm-hmm. So I had my background in the theater. I'm a theater person myself, a theater practitioner, whatever you like to call it.
How did you start, like, getting into opera?
Oh, in opera, I mean, I was in opera kind of in the business. Like at first, I was aficionado of the opera, or in Italian, a melomane, an opera lover, to be exact. And yes, I grew up listening to opera thanks to my. This is interesting. My granddad's friend that fed me with, stories, fantasies of plot of various operas. In fact, it was Zauberflöte.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
the magic
so
flute.
started with a German opera.
Yeah, German opera, with
Mozart.
it's like a fairy tale, the queen of the night scorning her daughter with high notes, oh, I love it. And, like a Carmen, a gypsy a girl with, luring this officer into her lair or something. And, oh, I love this kind of, it's so dramatic.
Highly sensationalized.
And I was,
everyday life.
At that age, I get started into this, as an opera lover. I was in about grade 5, or 4th grade or something like that. And then I go on and I study. I was an exchange student in Italy also during my high school years.
And that's when you started.
I'm more familiarized with Italian operas.
Right.
As opposed to, of course, French opera, the Bizet, Carmen, or the Zauberflöte, the Singspiel, kind of German word. It's strange. So all that stuff got me into my interest in opera. So I pursue my master in opera directing in Italy after I finished my bachelor.
And during that period, you also did what's the English term for that? Training, like apprenticeship.
Oh yeah, a stage or apprenticeship, like kind of say an internship. Internship, yes, exactly. Internship in various, like in Arena di Verona, the arena in Verona, and also I saw like how they worked with extra crowns, choruses, and more than like 200 people in a production.
It's like hosting an Olympic Games opening
more or less.
ceremony.
When you're there on the stage, you feel it's so not that big. But actually, when you are an audience, you feel it's so enormous, ginormous, or something like that. But when you are the people working in it, you feel like accustomed to it more and more and more. Yes, and it's so magical, working in that atmosphere. And so I'm in an open air space and also in like a normal opera house as well in Torino. And we will talk about the city also because the king, Rama V, also visited.
He started in Torino.
And we will talk about that later.
So how did we get all into this? It actually started with a blog. So what happened was that a few years back, it was during COVID, and a group of friends decided that a group of art students, เด็กอักษร they decided to get together and write a blog to comment on some literature that has relevance in today's world. And one person, she's a French literature student. She came up with this idea of a blog post about this book by Peerapat. Oh, sorry. There. So it all started with that book, Madame Chrysanthème by Peerapat. So she made a comment about that book, and we as a group realized that book inspired an American play, right, which became Madame Butterfly or Madama Butterfly. That's the play version in English, which inspires Madama Butterfly, the Puccini's retelling of the story in operatic form. And this, in turn, inspires Sao Krua Fa, which is a very iconic theatrical and cinematic figure in modern Thai culture. And as far as we know, the connection between Sao Krua Fa, which is a story about this girl
in the northern part of Thailand who falls in love with kind of
like a soldier, an army personnel from Bangkok, right? And then he needed to return, so that army personnel needs to be in the north, and then he was asked to return to Bangkok, and so he abandons the girl, and on his return he brought his new wife with a child, which is in fact a retelling, as in what's the English term for that เป็นเรื่องที่นำมาจาก plot ของ the plot of สาวเครือฟ้า derives from Madame Butterfly directly, almost directly, and we know that there is this strong connection came from the fact that King Rama V, and this is quoted from an edition of the play, of the script of the play, and it says that as King Rama V returns from his second journey to Europe in 1907, he told the story of Madame Butterfly of Puccini there to พระเจ้าบรมวงศ์เธอกรมพระนราธิปประพันธ์พงศ์ Prince Narathip, who is also known as a literalist, and so later Prince Narathip composed and adapted the story, the plot of Madame Butterfly, the Puccini's version, into the Thai version known as สาวเครือฟ้า asภาษาไทย in Thai it's called ละครร้อง which is like a part singing, part performing, Singspiel, a play that has musical singing in it, and it was staged for him, and he was very happy about that, as in the king was very happy about that. And so as we both looked into this history of how สาวเครือฟ้า and Madame Butterfly had such a strong connection, we thought of just go and have a look. It was during COVID when everyone's like trying to find things to do. So we thought let's just have a look at the entirety of ไกลบ้าน this
how it inspired
him initially, why was it Madame Butterfly that became an opera that inspired him so much during this 6-7 months of journey, and it turns out as it turns out, we were successful in locating at least 7 operas that he saw during these 7-month-long journey. Most of them particularly in Italy and in France, and including in the UK and Italy, France, UK,
and UK in this case.
Apart from many other การแสดง performances in general entertainment he saw, so opera is just one of the things he saw plays, he saw circus performances, he saw fireworks with music performances, ballets. We're not focusing on that, and we know that there are more of that, but for operas there are at least 7, and it all starts from our interest in how สาวเครือฟ้า and Madame Butterfly are connected. Let me just read the manuscript for you. As you see, this is just part of his memoir and what's so interesting is how detailed his impression of Madame Butterfly is, as you see in comparison to other operas. So he says, ค่ำไปดูละคร comic opera. So in the evening, I went to Opera Comique, which is an opera theater in an opera house in Paris. ตามที่ได้กะไว้แต่แรกเป็นเรื่องที่เรื่องลือว่าดีนัก. So he went as originally planned. This is an opera that's been raved by everyone in Paris. เรียกชื่อเรื่องว่า Madame Butterfly. It's called Madame Butterfly. ผู้ที่เป็นมาดามบัตเตอร์ฟลายนั้นคือมาดามคาเรที่เคยดูแล้วแต่ก่อน so the person who performs Madame Butterfly is this lady called Madame Carré. We'll go and find out who she is later, that I have seen before. So this is like signaling the fact that he has seen more than one performance of Madame Carré. เสียงเพราะและใช้บทดีมาก her voice is great, and the way she translate the libretto and the way she perform and the script is really good. เรื่องที่เล่นนี้ผูกเป็นเรื่องญี่ปุ่นฉากและเครื่องแต่งตัวผู้หญิงญี่ปุ่นทั้งนั้น This is like a story that has been inspired by Japan no the costumes the women they're all Japanese ท้องนิทาน the plot Madame Butterfly เป็นคนญี่ปุ่นขับรำเป็นคนผู้หญิงญี่ปุ่นขับรำ so Madame Butterfly is a Japanese woman who is a singer so a geisha นายทหารเรือผู้หนึ่งเป็นเพื่อนกับกงสุลอเมริกัน so there's this American Navy Pinkerton who is a friend of an American consul Sharpless ไปรักใคร่ผูกพันจนถึงได้แต่งงานตามประเพณีญี่ปุ่น so they fell in love and they got married in the Japanese culture in the Japanese tradition ด้วยผู้หญิงรักผู้ชายจึงละศาสนามาถือตามด้วยผู้หญิงรักผู้ชายจึงละศาสนามาถือตามผัว because Jojo sang because Madame Butterfly is so in love with the man her husband she gave up her religion she renounced her own religion and became a Christian according to her husband พระญี่ปุ่นมาแช่งด่า so there's this scene where
so this is very accurate
it's actually very accurate
it's like a reading from a program book
yeah
so I think
so there's this scene in which a Japanese priest and her kind of relatives and circle came on the stage and cursed at her for renouncing the religion in the wedding scene
yeah and we renounce you back there in the libretto
yeah
so it's he's telling this scene
แต่นายทหารนั้นกางกั้นไว้ but the husband protects her ตกลงเป็นได้อยู่ผัวเมียกันจนมีลูกชายคนหนึ่ง they are married and lived together as husband and wife and had a child a boy ตอนนี้เป็นฉากแรก that's act 1 ส่วนญี่ปุ่นมีผู้หญิงออกมากิ้วก้าวในเวลาแต่งงาน This is also very accurate if you know the story and if you've seen Madame Butterfly before so in this Japanese garden the women coming out andกิ้วก้าว what's กิ้วก้าว it's like making exaggeration of sharp noises in yeahต่อจากตอนนั้นเป็นฉากที่2 and then starts act 2 นายทหารนั้นกลับไปด้วยเรือรบเสีย3 ปี so Pinkerton the American Navy he returns for 3 years Madame Butterfly อยู่ทางนี้ทุกร้อนถึงผัว Madame Butterfly she is in Japan and she's in pain she thinks of her she misses her husband มีเจ้าญี่ปุ่นมาเกี่ยวพานขอให้หย่ากับผัวเสียThis is also very accurate. So there's this Japanese prince who apparently had a lot of wives, but he offered to marry her so that she no longer remains unprotected by men or by her husband who has no sign of returning to Japan at all. Butจะรับไปเป็นเมียก็ไม่ยอม but she
in no way she would divorce like
in no way
she still believes that
she still believes that she's the wife and she's not going to be married to anyone else เนาะภายหลังกงสุลอเมริกันไปบอกข่าวว่าได้รับหนังสือผัวจะมา later the American consul said he receives a letter saying that her husband is coming back Madame Butterfly ดีใจเมื่อเอากล้องส่องเห็นเรือที่ผัวมา so she was so happy she looked at the binoculars and saw this ship that carries her husband จึงช่วยกันกับสาวใช้จัดที่รับผัว and so with her maid they both prepare the house for Pinkerton เอาดอกบ๊วยมาเที่ยวเสียบตามขวดและตามฝาThey decorated the house with flowers แต่งตัวและแต่งลูกget dressed and then got her child and now 3-year-old boy get dressed
for her boy
จนเวลาข้ามบ่าวจุดตะเกียงมาตั้ง and in the evening the servants lit up the lanterns นางนั้นออกไปยืนอยู่ที่ฝาโรงเอานิ้วทะลุกระดาษที่ดึงฝาเฟียม this is very
like
detailed
in the stage direction actually
yeah so as she waits that night as she waits for the arrival of Pinkerton she walks to the front of the stage right there's supposed to be this Japanese screen paper screen and she pokes her fingers through the screen so that she can look with her eyes through the screen without showing her physical body to the outside waiting for as she waits for her husband ทั้งบ่าวและลูกด้วย and with her maid and her child is there เสียงร้องเพลงอยู่ข้างนอกดูลูกก็นอนหลับไปบ่าวก็นอนหลับ so they're singing from the outside off stage and the boy also fell asleep and the maid also fell asleep
so he described it in detail and it's all accurate yeah
let's just go to the end you can go and read this in there is a French translation because this is meant to be in France and there is for those of you who read Thai this is from Wachirayan online the database for Thai literature let's just look at the very end where butterfly dies so what happens is that as happens in Sao Krea Fa the husband came back right but he brought his wife his new wife his legal wife and so butterfly was in despair she also saw the new wife and she was told that they were going to take the child back to America and she would be left alone in Japan and so she picked up this knife and I find this very interesting so His Majesty says ในมีดนั้นมีคำจารึกไว้ว่าสู้เสียชีวิตหรือดีกว่าเสียชื่อ so this is like a direct translation from the libretto in this case it's in French or in Italian and Butterfly actually reads something out as you might have seen in the opera she would read this inscription out of her knife and she ช่วยมีดนั้นได้เข้าไปในซอกคอช่วยมีดนั้นได้เข้าไปในซอกฉากเชือดคอตาย and so she grabbed that knife and slit her throat as she walks out to the stage side พอเสียงมีดตกโป้ง as the knife fell ก็แว่วเสียงผัวมาทางประตูเรือน you can hear the sound of the husband coming from off stage and she climbed back into the stage สู้คลานตะเกียกตะกายมาเลือดเปื้อนมือทั้งแดงสองข้าง she climbed back onto stage with lots of blood พอไปถึงประตูซึ่งได้ลั่นกลอนไว้ ไว้ก่อนเวลาจะฆ่าตัวก็ล้มลงขาดใจปิดม่านปุ๊บทันที and so as she climbed to unlock the door she died and then curtain fell this is a very sad story King Chulalongkorn says เรื่องราวน่าสงสารมากใช้บทดีเหลือเกินthe script is really good เสียงดีทั้งผู้หญิงผู้ชาย and the singing is also really good for men and women มันโคมอยู่นิดเดียวที่เขาไม่ได้เจรจาใช้ร้องทั้งสิ้นand he find it I think Kom is like difficult or he had difficulty because this is a singing performance there is no talking at all it's like a sung through performance การที่จะร้องกระซิบกระซาบมันก็ไม่ได้ there is no whispering ต้องร้องกระซิบดังๆ there's only I think in Broadway they call it shouting whisper so there are a lot of there are a lot of whispering in Madame Butterfly but according to King Chulalongkorn it's not actually whispering it's not
a stage whisper or something like that
it has to be like a stylized whispering so that
it's not subtle enough for him for to his taste
เสียงกึกก้องไปทางนั้นและต่างว่าไม่ได้ยิน like they need to do this shouting whisper and pretend that they don't hear each other even if the sound is really loud
because of course also in the libretto and also in the script actually it's several asides, as in tradition. So he would find it like rather amusing, which is not that realistic. That like we're here and then I'm talking, Earth is so bad or something, and it's actually like this. It's in the opera tradition, and we're now in the like more realistic approach to the naturalistic approach, which is we'll talk later about verismo.
We'll talk about that.
But I think it's interesting that he points this out.
Yeah. พิณพาทย์มีเพลงแปลกมากๆ The orchestra had a lot of strange music เจือเพลงญี่ปุ่นไปทางนั้น It's filled with Japanese melodies เพราะดีนัก really beautiful กลับมาเวลา2 ยามตรง and he returned to I think it was the embassy at midnight. So that's his impression of Madame Butterfly, like an iconically detailed description of an opera about Asia, East Asia, seen by a Southeast Asian person. We'll come back to Madame Butterfly later. That's Opera Comique in Paris, as it appears in early 20th century, and here that is the opera now. Before we return to Madame Butterfly, let's go back and go find out how it started. What happened when he landed in Italy in May? What did he see? Apart from Madame Butterfly, we found out that on May the 14th of 1907, it's a Tuesday, and we know about this because we know of the date because His Majesty wrote in letters, as in he wrote letters and he would date them almost every day. And so technically we can compare those dates with some historical materials that we'll show you guys later. But the way we wanted to do this is to take you guys into this exploration together. So we'll read out to you what he wrote in each letters that has opera in them. And
here come the quiz.
And here come the quizzes. Yes. Opera lovers, music lovers, you're free to join us. So on the 49th night of his European journey, May the 14th, 1907, in Turin, he says, เวลาดินเนอร์แล้วไปดูออเปร่าที่โรงเรียกตามชื่อพระเจ้าแผ่นดินว่าวิตตอริโอแมนูเอลที่2 So after dinner we went to opera in an opera house that is named after the king at that time, which is Vittorio Emanuele II คือองค์ที่เป็นอัยการของพระเจ้าแผ่นดินองค์นี้ and who was the grandfather of the current king เล่นออเปร่าฝรั่งเศส It was a French opera ซึ่งเป็นเรื่องเก่า70 ปีมาแล้ว It's more than 70 years old การเล่นนี้ไม่ใช่ออเปร่าใหญ่ซึ่งเขามีแต่ฤดูหนาวนั้นก็จริง It's not a big opera that would be staged in winter แต่ตามความเห็นของ Duke of Genoa และผู้อื่นเห็นว่าดีอย่างยิ่ง But according to the opinion of Duke of Genoa and everyone else, this is an amazing show. เพราะพวกช่างที่ร้องดีๆไม่มีงานจะทำในเมืองหลวงจึงออกมาเที่ยวร้องตามหัวเมือง because talented singers in big cities they would come out to the more provincial cities to sing during off season. เหมาะที่เราจะโดยความเห็นของเราแล้ว in my opinion เหมาะที่เราจะดูโอเปร่ามากกว่าเธียเตอร์ I think that watching opera is more appropriate for me than going to theater. And he says here because he wouldn't understand the language anyway. ร้องไม่เข้าใจความเหมือนกันแต่เสียงที่ร้องมามันกลมกล่อม and so he would,
as in play, right?
as in play,
like straight play,
as in spoken play. So he wouldn't understand the language anyway. So he'd rather go to operas because he could feel the music. And at the end of this passage, we see a summary of an opera, and it says. เรื่องที่เล่นในวันนี้ for today's performance ผู้ชายซึ่งเป็นผู้รักใคร่กันกับผู้หญิงผู้หนึ่ง so there's a boy who is in love with a girl.
Of course, every opera.
That's how every opera starts. But that's not how every opera ends, as you might have known already. ด้วยความกินใจอย่างใดอย่างหนึ่ง for some really profound reason. โกรธผู้หญิงผู้ชายโกรธผู้หญิงไปในที่ประชุมคนรวมสัก50 เศษ This boy was so mad about this girl, and they went to this congregation of about 50 people, full of men and women. that looks like a ballet that's staged as a ballet but they're not dancing like a ballet ซึ่งออกอย่างบัลเล่ต์แต่ไม่ใช่เต้นอย่างบัลเล่ต์ stage like a ballet but not dance like a ballet มาร้องทีละพวกแลรวมกันผู้หญิงแต่งอย่างพวกตีรมนา they take turns in singing and the women were dressed up like gypsies ตีรมนา ramana is like this instrument tambourine yeah ผู้ชายอย่างพวกแทงวัวand the men were out like matadors yes เป็น Spanish ทั้งสองพวก they're both Spanish ผู้ชายกับผู้หญิงคู่รักนั้นคู่รักกันนั้นมาเกิดทุ่มเถียงกันขึ้น and the boy and the girl came out and argue จนเอาอะไรปากันก็ไม่รู้ and they start throwing something at each other ผู้หญิงนั้นเสียใจจนเป็นฝีในท้องนอนเจ็บอยู่ the girl was so depressed that she had so here it's like she would have tumor in her stomach in her belly yeah and fell ill ฝีในท้อง I think this is like a 19th century Thai description of tuberculosis เป็นฝีในท้องผู้ชายนั้นหวนกลับมาดีกัน and the boy returns but the girl แต่ผู้หญิงนั้นเจ็บมากแล้ว but the girl was so in pain too much in pain เลยคร่ำครวญไปจนถึงตาย and so she was weeping until she died เวลาตายล้มลงเหมือนตายจริงๆat the point of dying it feels like she's actually dying ฟังเสียงร้องและท่าที่กำกับทางพิณพาทย์มันกลมกลืนกันจับใจ the singing and the orchestra it blends so well and it's so touching แต่คนดูไม่สู้มากนัก but there aren't that many people anyone want to guess which opera this is so this is considered one of the more difficult operas to identify because he didn't give a name didn't give us a name but the description is actually quite
there's a fallacy in it
the description is actually quite detailed but yeah there's like a trick like a bit of a mistake but this description of the gypsy chorus and the matador is actually very accurate yeah very
but the first paragraph
but not the French yeah not the French although the story of this opera takes place in France yeah so yeah he says here it's a French opera at the beginning right but it's not actually a French opera it's just taking place in France so the Ramana scene the gypsy scene it kind of as I read through it kind of reminds me of this scene from Verdi's La Traviata just before we go to the opera sorry I just want to show you the theater that's Teatro Vittorio Emanuele and that's the architectural drawing of the place in 1901 the facade in 1901 anyway so this description of a chorus with gypsies with tambourine and with matadors it reminds us of the scene from Verdi's La Traviata this is the London production in Covent Garden accurately staged and there's this description of the boy throwing things at each other which is also part of La Traviata at the very end of the scene the boy and the girl came out and argue Violetta Varelli and Alfredo Germont they came out and argued in front of the stage and then in Act 3 Violetta actually had tuberculosis and died in Alfredo's arm and we thought this was actually a very accurate description of La Traviata but he didn't name the opera so how did we find out that it's actually La Traviata so we consulted some archives
we know the date that
yeah because we know the dates right of the letter the letters were dated and so we went to this archive of La Stampa which is
Italian newspaper which also dates every day they have a section in which it's today's performances like because in Turin in particular there are many opera houses many theaters and the spettacoli d'oggi this part is called a giorno to today there are like shows of today's shows so we spot on this Teatro Vittorio Emanuele so this theater which the king went to so we said so that day Traviata is being performed
And La Stampa is still an active newspaper now, based in Turin. No? And this is something that you see in 19th century and early 20th century newspapers I think in Europe.
Yes.
It's like, I think back in the 90s and early 2000s, we still have them here as well. As you look in the newspaper, you see what films will be played with screen in local cinemas. Yeah. This is the predecessors of that publication. No, so it would list out
8:45. It says.
Oh yeah, it says there. Right? 8:45.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah,
quite late. It's typical in Italy. So.
And so you'll find a list of everything that will be performed in the day or in the week, and not just as you could see. So that's La Stampa on May the 14th, which is the day that His Majesty arrives. These two are snippets from the 15th of May edition, which is a report on what was happening the day before on the 14th. And if Tim could read this to us.
It's l'arrivo del Siam. It's, of course, the arrival of the King of Siam. Mm-hmm. And it's, okay, I'll summarize it. Okay. So it says
at the very end. So this is at the very end of this passage.
Yeah, so the king arrives from San Remo, and it says that more or less that the train arrived at the station on time, quite on time, at 6:10. I think that I can see well, but anyway, in the evening, and then and there's the Duke of Genoa, which of course it's goes with the King's Journal. They said that there's this.
So in the King's Journal, he also mentioned Duke of Genoa, and here it also mentioned
accompanied him to the opera. So it's just accurate also, and okay. So this section here is called the King of Siam. Yesterday evening, went to the Vittorio Emanuele Theatre with the Duke of Genoa, Duca di Genoa, and also the king didn't mention, but also with the Prince of Udine, another town of Italy, so another royal, and I've seen the last performance of Traviata, l'ultima rappresentazione. Okay, the last performance at Traviata.
So that's kind of the confirmation of both parts. So the king's describes something that is very similar to what we imagine as La Traviata, and the newspaper is also reporting on him going to La Traviata.
Yeah, so confirmed.
Thanks to how much material there is around European archives, we also found this magazine called Il Teatro Illustrato, which is a culture magazine that contains, as you could see there, a review of what was going on. This is like a bi-monthly เป็นนิตยสารรายปัก so it appears 2 times a month, and it would each at the end or at the start of each week they would report and review what was in theaters the week before, and so we took
what was going on in various cities.
In northern Italy. And so we took this issue of Il Teatro Illustrato from the second half of May, which in theory will report on what was going on in the first half. And as the king arrives on the 14th, in theory, what is here in Torino is very likely what he saw. If Tim could read some.
Yes.
So at the very end of the paragraph.
It's about La Traviata. So from this section here, we know who the performers were in that season that the king saw. So it's a review from this critic, the Signora Giuseppina Piccoletti. So this is the soprano, the protagonist who plays, of course, the protagonist Violetta, magnificent protagonist, of course. So it's a rave review. And a young tenor called Giovanni Genzardi, an excellent Alfredo, which is the part of the tenor who throws the money, litigating with which the king described. And the baritone, the king didn't mention this, the father of the protagonist, played by the baritone called Mieli, who the character named Germont, and Di Valore, which means of course of value. So it's a qualified, let's say, a performer.
So is it like talented enough to?
Talented. Senior. Okay, and it's also mentioned the conductor as well.
Yeah.
We will the Cavalier Giannetti, which is an optima, so an excellent concerto. So he did conducted well that performance. Yes.
So from this passage, despite the fact that we don't have the exact dates, we kind of get the idea about the ensemble, the set of performance, and the fact that
The quality,
they were
more or
taking
less,
place around the same time as the reports of the operas being performed and the arrival of the king. It feels like that was her, Giuseppina Piccoletti, and we've. But this is thanks to the internet. Let's just listen to how she sounds like in this recording from La Traviata in the finals in Act 3 at Dio del Passato, which is, I mean, I enjoy this so much because this is actually what King Chulalongkorn would have heard as well. This is the sound he would have heard. No? Sung by Giuseppina Piccoletti, which was a soprano.
Which the king described it, very moving.
Very moving.
Yeah, very moving.
So here goes Addio del Passato from 1905 recording of Madame Piccoletti. Oh, no sound. นี่นะครับ
There was sound earlier. Okay.
พี่บรรจงครับเปิดเสียงให้หน่อยครับ โอเค
So moving. So this aria actually is farewell to the past of the past. Adio del pasado is Violetta, the protagonist, the courtesan or the call girl, prostitute or whatever. It depends on the what production. But anyway, it's towards the end of the opera where she is in her dying bed, begging God to forgive her. So it's you would also hear something she sings about Traviata, the name of the opera. So she is the astray one, Traviata, one who goes astray. So she actually sings, "I'm the one who astray. Please give me pardon, oh God. Please help. I'm finished now. My life is finished, and I'm pale." There's a recitative part, like almost like talking, almost like a recite at the very beginning. So it's like, how I mutated, how I changed so much. I'm not as beautiful as I once was anymore, and that please forgive me, and I'm dying. Everything is finished. Something like that. So it's a moving scene because it's the Traviata. To sum up quickly, it's about this courtesan who is very young. And she always refuses love from anyone and try to live freely, gaily by herself and go to parties. But then she found this love from this young bourgeois man called Alfredo, and which is a decent guy. But then the father of this Alfredo just comes to her country house, which she now lives happily with Alfredo, retired from.
They eloped.
Together, like after a month of eloping, of living happily, not ever after, in a country house. The father of her lover came and just destroyed her dream. So she has to come back to become a courtesan again. And then she already have this disease, which is TB, tuberculosis, and then at the end she dies in Alfredo's arms because the father in the end just comes back and then go to her and she's gonna die anyway. So it's it's basically like that. In the end, it's so cruel, and that's the fact that it's so moving. And so the king, even though maybe he didn't even actually understand everything, but he understands the feeling, the emotions that this courtesan, although like a prostitute, has the soul as pure and purer than other characters in the story, which is the elite, the young, the rich, the old that surrounds her should be more like a decent kind of human being. But in the end, it's the courtesan, the prostitute that has the purest soul of all, and that's the point of value, to deal with hypocrisy and with to critique the society at the time. Actually, it was kind of banned, so he has to, in Venice, like the king said, 70 years before that, when it was first performed in Venice, he has to change the setting 100 years earlier to not defend anyone, to not offend anyone, because it's a contemporary subject about a real, more or less, one can assume that there was a real courtesan at the time, which is in turn derives from this novel, and the novel then become a play, a straight play, adapted by the author himself, Alexandre Dumas fils, La Dame aux Camélias.
So it starts from this story, La Dame aux Camélias.
Yeah.
Right, and then the story on one direction it became a play.
Yeah.
On one direction it became an opera, right, and then from the play it also became a ballet.
Yeah, it became a ballet as well. So it's various adaptations.
This story of the girl who I don't remember her name though. She was
Marie Duplessis. Marie Duplessis, real, and also a lover of pianist Liszt.
Oh yeah.
Also, so it's also a lover to Alexandre Dumas fils himself. So it's like an autobiographical kind of recollection of his past or something. And Verdi adapted it from the play, which Dumas adapted into a play. So it's like, we talked about Sauerkraut and Butterfly before, and come from Loti's Madame Chrysanthème. So it's it's the same way around. It's very normal to, from one.
So like now when you would adapt a novel into a TV series or something,
the same plot, like Romeo and Juliet, let's say. So it's becomes something else and then comes back to become Romeo and Juliet again, but in the new setting
Yep.
or change name or change setting whatever yeah
In that regard, we think of things like films like Moulin Rouge. That is actually partly kind of inspired by the plot of La Traviata as well, with the character that is played by
Satine for Nicole Kidman, so it's kind of a showgirl, and a writer. It's a combination of La Bohème and the opera with of course, but the plot is more similar to Traviata, one would say.
and most iconically, Pretty Women.
Rom-com of the 90s.
Romantic comedies, the rom-com of the 1990s. If you've seen the film, there is this scene, this intertextual scene in which Julia Roberts as what's her name? I don't remember anymore. Julia Roberts' character went to Opera San Francisco and saw La Traviata and cried. She's looking at herself on stage.
Moved by the opera.
That tells her life to herself. Anyway, we've also been able to identify Giovanni Gensardi and Oreste Mieli, who are the tenor and baritone of that Traviata that possibly seen by King Chulalongkorn. Moving on to the next night where he went to an opera again at the same theater as he says, opera วันนี้โรงเก่านั่นเอง he went to the same theater. This is also considered quite difficult. So he says what happened is that เรื่อง opera วันนี้ today's opera แต่งใหม่เกี่ยวแก่ศาสนา is a new composition about religion ว่าผู้ใดเอาหินไปปา who is going to throw the stone ถูกเขาจับจะเอาไปลงโทษ This is a very difficult passage to start. So I'm trying to think of the story as well. There's one person, the crowd is going to throw a stone at someone who's going to be like publicly persecuted. But แล้วพระเยซูช่วย but then Jesus Christ turns up. พระเยซูไม่ได้ออก Jesus Christ didn't appear on stage เป็นแต่ทำท่าเหมือนจะออก but we felt like he was gonna come out on stage. Everyone kneel ทุกคนทุกคนคุกเข่ากันแล้วก็ปิดม่าน Everyone kneels and then the curtain comes down มีร้องคร่ำครวญมาก There's lots of คร่ำครวญ is like wailing singing in a wailing kind of style แต่มันไม่ใคร่จับใจเหมือนเมื่อวานนี้ but it's not as touching as yesterday. The Duke of Genoa got so bored he fell asleep ดุกof Genoa นั่งเบื่อจนเลยหลับกลับมาบ่นใหญ่ว่ามันแต่งใหม่ไม่ได้เรื่องได้ราวไม่จับใจ and came back and complained that this new composition is a mess. It's not touching. Anyway, anyone want to guess which opera this is? we had so much difficulty identifying this opera before going to La Stampa. Oh, what's happening to the? Sorry. Before consulting the archive, because it sounds like a strange description of just as it sounds like just a scene of an opera, right? In comparison to what we've just seen with La Traviata, where he describes many parts of the story. This sounds like a description of just one bit of the whole show. I just wanted to show you this image because he says here that originally he went to วันก่อนดูไม่ทั่ว he didn't yesterday so when he saw La Traviata he couldn't see much because he was sitting on this restricted view tickets on the side of the stage. But today for this mysterious opera he came and sat at the royal box.
Finally.
And that is the royal box in Teatro Vittorio Emanuele. And that's the box by the stage. That's the stage. So you can kind of see that. You can actually see that well according to his description. Anyway, so we went back to La Stampa. We went back to this calendar and realized that what he thought as one opera is actually
Espiazione. It's also an obscure opera. We thought it was that one.
But as you read through this calendar, we realized that apart from Espazione, there is also this opera called Cristo alla festa di Purim, or Christ at the festivals of Lots, at the festival of Lots, which we found the text,
which corresponds to that term.
And so Cristo alla festa di Purim is written by Giovanni Giannetti, I think that's his first name, Giovanni
Yes,
Giannetti.
which we mentioned before earlier in that reviewed in the Teatro Illustrato magazine, which also the conductor of the Traviata, which the king saw the day before. So the composer himself is also a conductor. So it's the guy, Giannetti.
And here, as we read the text at the end of the opera, it says, with the voice of the Christ.
Yeah, so it's a voice of the Christ himself. And it's also written in the very, it's not written here, but it's written at the very beginning of the libretto. It's a spoken voice, so it's not a sung voice, but should be ideally spoken by a contralto. So like a lower kind of...
Very strange.
Yeah, very. So by a woman should portray the voice of Christ.
And at the very end, as the voice of the Christ is heard, what's that?
Everyone kneels, make way for the Christ, while the curtain is going down very slowly. Curtain.
So that matches the description of King Chulalongkorn's journal. So not only we found the text,
and also there's description that tutti prendono le pietre. Everyone takes the stones and is about to throw the adulteress. Here's a description of voice of the Christ. So it's like so it's everything matches what the king described in that passage.
And so we wanted to know how this opera sounds like. But apparently there is no recording of the opera because it went into obscurity right after King Chulalongkorn saw it. But in the library of the Accademia Santa Cecilia in Rome, there is a vocal score, which we found and located and made a copy of. And this opera will be part of the performance that Ajanti was mentioning. Especially the scene, particularly
the scene that the king described.
Where the king describes.
With a twist, something like that.
And it's written in a very, as far as I've heard it, it's written in a very stylized, very small kind of fashion. We went back to apart from the vocal score, we went back to our friend Teatro Illustrato and looked at the review, and it says here that if you could help me with the Del Cristo thing,
the Cristo applauded in that. Oh, so the interpreter, so the performers very applauded. They all applauded. But in all the bravissima, the greatest one is Ercil de Chervi, who plays Maria di Magdala. So Mary Magdalene, basically. So it's the protagonist is the soprano Mary Magdalene and Judah. Interestingly, are the protagonists of this opera.
So with this passage, we're able to again identify the singers, the lead singers of this opera, which is Madame Ercil de Chervi. Let's just hear a bit of her singing again. Oops. Advertisements. I didn't pay for YouTube, so she's gonna sing a very iconic, very small aria called In quelle trine morbide. In quelle trine morbide from
Manon Lescaut,
by
Puccini's Manon Lescaut.
Yeah.
Okay.
พี่บรรจงครับขอเปิดเสียงหน่อยครับ